I never thought I'd hear a shocking truth straight from my dad's mouth through the kitchen window. Growing up feeling distant from him, I always wondered if he truly loved me, or if mom alone was enough to fill that void. But when my name popped up in his chat with a friend, everything flipped upside down. What did he say that made my heart stop? And how would it change my family forever? I'm not close to my dad, and it all started when I was little, when he almost never wanted to spend time with me. While mom was my amazing companion, dad felt like a stranger in our own home. I remember bright afternoons when mom took me to the park, played on the swings, or drew colorful, messy pictures with me on the floor. She'd sing, tell fairy tales, or pretend to be a horse for me to ride, our laughter filling the small room. Those moments bonded us, and now, grown up, I still feel her warmth, an unbreakable tie. But with Dad, it was the opposite. I'd eagerly follow him, my tiny feet pattering on the wooden floor, just to ask him to play or watch him do something. Once, I stood by the garage door, eyes sparkling as he worked on the car, the clanging of metal like a strange tune. "Dad, teach me," I'd chirp, but he'd glance over, voice flat. "Go play with your mom, I'm busy." It was always like that, a dull refrain on repeat. I didn't understand, my heart sank, my little hand clenched, and I'd quietly walk away. One day, I tried harder, bringing a small ball and standing before him as he read the paper on the sofa. "Dad, kick the ball with me?" I asked, voice brimming with hope. He didn't even look up, just waved me off. "Your mom likes that stuff more, ask her." I stood there, watching the ball roll under the couch, feeling pushed out of an invisible door. Over time, his indifference made me believe he didn't like me, that I wasn't worth his attention. As months passed, I kept trying, but each rejection left a tiny scratch on my heart. Once, I peeked at him from afar as he laughed with the neighbor in the yard, his voice lively and warm, something I never got. I wondered, had I done something wrong? Or was I just not interesting enough for him? Mom was always there, filling the void with unconditional love, teaching me to tie my shoes, bake, or hugging me tight when I was sad. Thanks to her, my childhood still shone brightly, but the gap Dad left was unfillable. Now, grown up, Mom and I remain as close as ever, while with Dad, all I feel is a cold distance, like two lines destined never to meet. The distance between my dad and me, simmering since my childhood, seemed like just a prelude to a horrifying truth I stumbled upon one seemingly peaceful afternoon. I was in the kitchen, rummaging through the fridge for something to snack on after a long day. The sound of birds chirping outside blended with the faint smell of bread, painting a simple, cozy scene. Then I heard my dad's voice, not loud but clear as day through the open window. He was in the backyard, phone in hand, chatting with a friend in his usual flat tone. I wasn't planning to eavesdrop, just absent-mindedly grabbing a slice of bread and spreading some jam, until my name suddenly dropped into his conversation. My heart skipped a beat, the bread pausing midair in my hand. A strange mix of curiosity and dread surged within me. I set the plate down, tiptoeing closer to the window, pressing myself against the wall to stay hidden. My breathing slowed, as if even the slightest sound might shatter the moment. Through the thin glass, Dad's voice came through, tinged with a regret I'd never heard before. "I always wanted a son more than a daughter." Those words hit like an icy gust, freezing me in place. He went on, his tone lower. "I didn't try to build a relationship with her because she's a girl. I didn't know what to do with a daughter." I stood there stunned, feeling the floor beneath me crumble. The bread I'd been holding slipped to the floor, rolling among crumbs, but I didn't care to pick it up. He continued, saying he'd begged Mom to have a second child, hoping for a boy to fulfill his wish. But Mom refused, firm on raising just one kid, so he gave up. He admitted that once I started walking and talking, he checked out entirely, leaving Mom to raise me alone while he buried himself in work, cars, and beers with friends, things he deemed more worthwhile than me. Every word was a sharp blade, slicing deep into my heart, unearthing painful memories I'd tried to bury. I recalled his indifferent glances when I'd begged him to play, his curt, "go to your mom," and how he always kept me at arm's length like I was a burden. It wasn't my imagination. He truly didn't want me because I wasn't a son. Out in the yard, he kept talking, his voice now distant, like it belonged to another planet. "I think if I had a son, I'd know how to be a father." I bit my lip hard, tears welling up, but I refused to let them fall. I turned away, my steps heavy, wondering if my existence had ever truly mattered to him at all. After hearing my dad's cruel words through the kitchen window, it felt like the entire world I'd known crumbled before my eyes. I stumbled out of the kitchen in a daze, my trembling legs carrying me up the stairs to my room, each step dragging a heavy weight in my chest. I shut the door, collapsed onto my bed, and stared blankly at the ceiling, trying to piece together the shattered fragments of my emotions that his conversation had mercilessly broken. All afternoon, I lay there, my mind spinning with questions. Should I keep this secret forever? Or let this pain gnaw at me silently day by day? But I knew I couldn't face it alone. I needed Mom, the only one who'd always been my light in the darkest times. When Mom got home from work, I lingered by the kitchen door, watching her shrug off her coat and set her bag on the table with the familiar exhaustion of a long day. I took a deep breath to muster my courage, my heart pounding like it might burst out of my chest. "Mom, can you come to my room for a bit?" I asked timidly, my voice so soft I worried she wouldn't hear. She turned, her gentle eyes flickering with concern as they met my red-rimmed ones. She nodded silently and followed me upstairs. When the door clicked shut, the room fell into a stifling quiet, and I stood there, hands twisting together, unsure where to begin. Finally, I took another breath and let it all spill out like a dam break. "I heard Dad talking on the phone with his friend," I started, my voice shaky. "He said he wanted a son more than a daughter, that he didn't bond with me because I'm a girl, and he even tried to convince you to have another kid to get a boy, but you said no." Each word felt like a needle piercing my heart, but I couldn't stop. "I feel like I'm nothing to him, Mom, like I'm just extra in this house. All these years I thought he was just busy, but it turns out he didn't want me from the start." Mom stood there silent, her eyes widening in shock before darkening with a pain I'd never seen. Her hands gripped the edge of her shirt so tightly her knuckles turned white, but she didn't interrupt, letting me pour it all out. When I finished, tears streamed down my face, and I choked out, "It hurts so much, Mom. I don't understand why he thinks of me like that." She stepped forward, pulling me into her arms, her warm embrace wrapping around me like a shield against the world. "My sweet girl, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking, her tears falling into my hair. "I didn't know he kept those thoughts inside. You're the best thing in my life. No matter who you are, I love you unconditionally. That's how a parent should be." I sobbed in her arms, her warmth easing some of the agony tearing me apart. After a while, she pulled back, wiping my tears with her sleeve, her eyes now blazing with rare resolve. "I'll talk to him," she said, her tone firm like an unshakable decree. She stood and left the room, leaving me with a whirlwind of emotions. From my room, I heard her call Dad to the living room, her voice sharp and cold, unlike her usual softness. Then the argument erupted, fierce and tense, laced with Dad admitting everything I'd overheard without a hint of denial. It ended with the front door slamming shut, the sound shaking the house. Dad had left to stay with Grandma. I sat there, hollow, wondering if this truth marked the start of an unfixable crack in our family. After Dad left the house amid the fierce argument with Mom, the following days passed in a heavy silence. Mom and I tried to maintain our daily routine, but the air in the house felt cloaked in a cold, misty haze. I didn't know where Dad was or what he was doing. I only overheard Mom mention he was staying at Grandma's to think things over. Then, one rainy evening, as I sat by the window watching droplets streak down the glass, the doorbell rang abruptly. Mom looked up from her book, a flicker of tension in her eyes. She stood, walked to the door, and I heard Dad's voice, low, hoarse, carrying the weight of his days away. I lingered behind the living room wall, heart pounding, too afraid to step out but unable to walk away. Mom asked coldly, "What are you doing here?" Dad replied, his voice softer than I'd ever heard, "I need to talk to both of you." Mom hesitated. I saw her shadow shift as if to shut the door, but she sighed and opened it wider. "Come in," she said, her tone stiff. I stepped forward, legs heavy, facing Dad for the first time since he admitted that painful truth. He looked at me, eyes red-rimmed, though I couldn't tell if it was from the rain or something else. Dad sat on the sofa, hands clasped, and began. "I'm sorry," he said, voice trembling. "I know what I said, what I did, was wrong. I regret not cherishing you, letting your gender blind me. I want to make it right, to be a better father." His words sounded sincere, but they felt distant, like a breeze that couldn't reach the gaping wound in my heart. Mom sat beside me, gripping my hand, her gaze icy. "An apology doesn't erase the years you neglected her," she said, voice steely. "You think words can make up for that?" I couldn't stay silent. I stood, voice choked but firm. "How do you plan to make it right? You ignored me my whole childhood, pushed me to Mom because I wasn't a boy. I'm turning 18 soon. I'm not a kid you can start over with. You hurt me not just with words, but with how you treated me every day. I don't forgive you." Dad bowed his head, his shoulders trembling, tears streaming down his cheeks, a sight I'd never seen. But it didn't soften me, it only left me more confused. Mom squeezed my hand tighter, then turned to Dad. "Leave. I don't want you here anymore." Her voice held no wavering. Dad looked up, mouth opening as if to speak, but he closed it, stood quietly, and walked out, leaving the room steeped in silence. I sank back down, feeling hollow, wondering if this was the final break in the already fragile thread between him and me. After Dad left the house for the second time, an eerie stillness enveloped the space, as if every familiar sound had been sucked away, leaving only cold, empty voids. I sat on the sofa, my heart still reeling from the fierce confrontation. But when Mom sat beside me, her gaze both resolute and gentle, a thread of comfort wove into my soul. She didn't say much, just rubbed my back softly, as if to assure me I was okay, that she was still here, no matter how bad things got. I rested my head on her shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of her clothes, feeling less unsteady despite the chaos Dad's words had left behind. That night, as I lay in bed trying to fall asleep, I heard Mom on the phone in her room, her voice low but piercing, each word laced with intense emotion. I couldn't catch the details, only guessing she was recounting everything to someone, and her tone made me think of Grandma. The next morning, as the first light slipped through the curtains, Mom called me to the kitchen. She was brewing tea, her hands moving slowly but deliberately, the gentle aroma of tea leaves drifting through the air, easing some of the house's heaviness. "Sit with me for a bit," she said, her voice warm and low, sliding a steaming cup toward me. I held it, the warmth spreading through my palms, and looked up at her, waiting. She sat across from me, taking a deep breath as if gathering strength, then began. "The night your dad first left, I texted your grandma right away," she said, her tone steady, but her eyes flashing with unhidden anger. "I told her everything he said on the phone, how he wanted a son more than you, how he treated you all these years like you didn't exist. I couldn't hold it in a second longer." I gripped the teacup tighter, the heat stinging my hands, but I didn't let go, my heart racing as I thought of Grandma's reaction. Someone I'd always seen as strict yet fair. Mom continued, her voice lowering as if reliving the moment. "Your grandma was livid. She called your dad right then, not giving him a chance to explain. She tore into him, saying he didn't deserve to be a father, that she didn't raise him to turn his back on his own flesh and blood." I pictured Grandma facing Dad, her small frame radiating authority, her voice thundering as she berated him for hurting me. "She told him he should be ashamed for breaking your heart. Then, without hesitation, she kicked him out of her house that rainy night," Mom said, her lips pressing tight, a hint of satisfaction flickering in her eyes. Mom placed her hand over mine, her warm fingers offering me a sense of safety. "Your dad can't stay at Grandma's anymore," she said, her voice firm. "She didn't forgive him, and he had to crash at some friend's place. I don't care what he does next, but I want you to know I won't let him step foot in this house again." Her words were a vow, strong and unwavering. She pulled me into a tight hug, whispering in my ear, "You're everything to me, and I'll protect you, no matter what." I hugged her back, silent tears falling, not from sorrow, but from realizing I wasn't alone in this storm. Dad may have abandoned me long ago, but Mom and Grandma, the strongest women I know, chose to stand by me, and that was enough to make me feel I still had worth, at least to those who truly loved me.